Can you tell us, take us through the kind of development and the idea behind this and how it kind of came together?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, it's looking back through some notes, it's over 2 years where this was, being planned and discussed and figured out, and even goes back a little further than that, before Sandy's arrival, and just having discussions about, our operation and how we, provided our services in different spaces and what we saw happening in the future and where we wanted this to go. And again, a little over 2 years ago, it got a lot more serious and space became available, which is always a challenging thing on a campus. And we kind of felt like, this was the right direction to go, to bring all our services under one roof, bring all of our staff together. How were we going to be providing the most efficient and the best services to our student athletes, and again, and allowing our staff to be efficient in what they're doing. And so bringing our staff together is going to be a real positive. Having all of our student athletes in one location and not these four different pieces on campus is going to be extremely nice, and also just the upgraded spaces itself. I mean, just what we have here compared to us operating out of an East Area locker room or rec hall is very different, and really is student focused, student centered, and the way students learn today. And this is the kind of environment we needed, and quite frankly, we didn't have some of that before. And so, again, what you see has been a lot of planning, a lot of people involved from our office here in the Morgan Center, athletics, undergraduate education. Just the planning committee has done an unbelievable job, really maximizing the space we had and the budget we had to really come up with what we think is one of the top spaces in the country.
Was there a moment when the light bulb went off that Pagula gives all this money to build the ice arena? This becomes basically an obsolete space for hockey. When did everything kind of come together there? Was there, because I'm sure you were looking for spaces for a while.
Well, that's part of the conversation was, if we do consolidate, where do you do something like this, and how does that come about? Because space is at such a premium here on campus, and it's probably about 2 years ago when everybody started talking about this space and what was going to be done here and how it would be utilized, and got really serious at that point, knowing what was happening here with the ice arena, knowing the swing space, as Sandy mentioned in her comments. Part of the building is being utilized for some swing space on campus. So, all the pieces kind of came together there. Hockey moving out, the swing space there. So we had this space that we could accommodate our student athletes, accommodate our staff, and really bring it together. And we think being a pretty good location for our student athletes. I mean, obviously it's not a central smack dab in the middle of campus, but you look at our student athletes where they're at and the percentages, and it made a lot of sense to be here.
You had touched on recruiting and bringing prospects through here. How did that work before when you were all over creation?
Yeah, I mentioned four spaces, and really in two of the spaces we had staff, and the other two were actually study spaces, facilities that our students would meet with tutors and our mentors and utilize our services in those other two spaces. So again, operating out of four. But prior to being in here now, when coaches, when our coaching staffs bring prospects to campus, they'd set up visits and come to those spaces with the prospects, the families, and sometimes, it was a challenge. I mean, one-on-one meetings or one family meetings were able to accommodate very easily, but, some of the bigger groups became a challenge just in terms of the amount of space we had and where we can do things like that. And obviously what you see here, we have all kinds of flexibility from a one-on-one to a group of 10, a group of 20, just a lot of options there for our staff to meet with students, families, big groups, small groups, and definitely makes it a lot easier for our staff to accommodate those kinds of requests and those kinds of meetings and really conduct our services here.
Where does this facility rank among others in the Big Ten in your?
Yeah, we're definitely in when you look at square footage, we're definitely in the top tier. There's no question about it. In my position, having been to a lot of the universities and seeing spaces, Michigan, Nebraska tend to stand out a little bit in terms of total square footage, but we're right in line there and getting closer to that to those numbers. And it's always funny how those numbers come about and what's included in spaces and what's not. I mean, you see here obviously we've included a fueling station and some additional things, but I think we're definitely in the ranks up there with any space I've seen.
And I'm sorry if I missed this. What day did this actually open, and when do you expect it to be 100% to the extent that something can be 100% everything?
Well, yeah, it's a credit to the planning committee and the group involved in that project. I mean, we actually got in here 2 weeks early. Our first day of work down here was, I believe, was June 3rd, that Friday. So we've been in the space and working out of here since then. It was great. It was great. I mean, to get in early, obviously, and as we're working through little things yet, it's kind of nice to be here to be able to answer questions and take care of things. But we'll have a lot going on this summer. I mentioned our second summer session starts up next week, so we'll have a lot of students here on campus taking classes. A big group of new students, first-time freshmen here starting in the summer. So starting next week, we're going to have a lot going on here with our new students, our returning students for 6 weeks.